he is the man in power to manage crisis of Melissa and our recovery, it also is the opportunity for him to build more on what he did in the last 2 terms. So, Prime Minister, we are grateful that you have managed to take the time to come to be here with us today. You could have sent us forward and said, boy, Minister, there's too much to do. High Commissioner, there's too much to do. But we know that the community is always in your heart, always in your mind. And we didn't even have to try to persuade him. He said when and what time, right? So we want to thank you for being here. You are well respected, sir. Your perspectives and participation, your perspectives are highly valued, and that makes us always want to hear from you in every setting. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm asking you to join me in welcoming a leader who is working hard to advance Jamaica's interests.
Oh, you're all looking so good. Please, 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 please. Allow me to do the formalities, please. To do the formalities very quickly. Thank you very much, Minister. You are the superstar Minister of Foreign Affairs. All the other ministers and prime ministers, they literally say this. Can I have your Minister of Foreign Affairs? Of course not. No, she is a spectacular minister, dedicated, extremely competent. And of course, allow me to also acknowledge from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, our High Commissioner to Trinidad and Tobago, who has oversight of this country, Her Excellency, Natalie Rodriguez Campbell, or Campbell Rodriguez. Natalie, you should stand. We have Ambassador Esmond Reed, and Ambassador is an appropriate title. Minister, did I promote him? But I also want to say thanks to Mr. Arthur Sharp and his wife, who have made this possible tonight by allowing us to use these facilities, lovely facilities, and who is our honorary consul. Dedicated to the cause for many years. We're most grateful, and we would want to tell you thanks personally. And then, of course, to you, all of you who have decided to take your Friday evening. Some of you are coming from Nevis, yes, and I know you would have come by boat. And I gather with all of this wind, the water is very choppy, but you came nonetheless. And so I personally want to tell you thanks for taking the time. It means a lot, and it means a lot to me that you would have taken the time to come to see me. So I'm glad to see you. Because there's so many things to talk about, so many things to bring you up to date on. But let me start with that cruel visitor we had in late October, Melissa. I don't know how many of you have been following the news that they have upgraded the wind speed of the hurricane, and it is now tied for the most destructive and most powerful hurricane that has ever hit the Atlantic. So, yeah, so when you hear people talking about Jamaica's response to the hurricane, you have to put it into context that we were not hit by a normal hurricane. This was the strongest hurricane that the earth could produce, hit Jamaica. And as bad as it was, though, right? You know, God is always looking out for us, because that's the only thing I could say. If not giving us more than we can bear. So he must know what our capacity is. So I was watching the hurricane passing along the southern shore. And I was worrying that if the hurricane turned, it would hit Kingston. And that would have been a different story. But I know many of you prayer warriors were on your knees in prayer. And it passed and it went further west, and it landed in Westmoreland, close to St. Elizabeth as well. And it was devastation. I don't know how many of you have been back to Jamaica to go and see the devastation yourself. Not yet. But when I flew over the day after, the only description I could give to truly convey the devastation is that it was an atomic bomb of wind and rain. When we landed in Black River, everything flat. Flat. When we flew over parts of Westmoreland that were damaged, White House, and those areas, flat. Very, very, very disturbing scenes. But what was very inspiring at the end of all of that, when I landed and I met the people, they weren't defeated. They weren't defeated. One young lady I met in Westmoreland, a video that went viral, she said, "You see my house gone, you see my neighbor, her house gone, my shop gone, but we have life. And we give God thanks for life. We can start again, we can build again." And even when we had the visit of some of our CARICOM prime ministers, one of the things they commented on was the resilience of the Jamaican spirit. Right? Of course, resilience is important. Determination to succeed is important. But that has to be matched by the government's support, because government is an enabler. And what we have done is to, first of all, make sure that we are able to put on a very effective relief effort. So in the first 2 weeks of the hurricane, the effort of the government was on relief. Now, what is the relief? The relief is usually the humanitarian support, to get aid to persons who can't get the basics of life. And in that regard, the JDF was very helpful, but we didn't have enough airlift. Thankfully, the Americans came in and we were able to get heavy lift from them. And other private persons took in their aircrafts as well. And that was very helpful. Many countries came to our aid immediately, including many CARICOM countries. I would say, Minister, I don't want to name and then I leave out any, but almost all CARICOM countries contributed in some way. Some gave cash, Some gave kind, some gave their time and labor, some sent building materials, all kinds of things. In fact, I will mention Guyana, because Guyana sent their engineering corps. They've been essentially living in Jamaica now for 2 months. They have rebuilt over 150 roofs of 200 that they have committed to do, in addition to a police station and a high school. They've done an amazing job. And as I said, since I started to name now, I don't know how I'm going to stop. But, you know, Barbados sent their field hospital, Trinidad sent containers of food, and so too did Guyana, and several other countries contributed cash. Yes, and assisted. And, you know, we're grateful. And as Jamaicans, one of the things that we believe, as one of our artists would have said, coined it in our song, gratitude is a must. So we give thanks for our brothers and sisters in CARICOM for coming out and stepping up in the way they have to support us. And, you know, you might hear talk about the region and we're not integrated and there is fragmentation. You know, look, everybody has their own interests that they have to protect. But we're still a family. You and your brother, you and your sister don't always see the thing the same way, but touch one away. Yeah, and that is the spirit, that we are always looking out for each other. You know, we have been spared any major natural disasters for many years, but other countries have been hit. And what we did is that we prepared by establishing, through the Jamaica Defense Force, a disaster assistance and relief team called DART. And we have deployed that DART team across the region several times. We deployed for almost 6 months to Dominica. And we deployed for a month in Hurricane Dorian, I believe. 2 months in the Bahamas, 3 months. 1 month in the Bahamas, and I believe we did almost 6 months in Dominica. Mm-hmm. So we have been helping each other, right? And that is how it has to be. I make this point to all of you here, that you hear this thing that we talk about, climate change. Climate change is a real thing, right? Especially for small islands like us. The weather is changing. And we see that in many ways. But the change in the weather means that we're going to experience unseasonal weather events. Let me just walk you through that very quickly. Imagine we had Beryl in 2024. After Beryl, we had 3 weeks straight of rain every day. Some of you would know that because you're here. It destroyed our road network right across Jamaica. And you know the roads, they are ready. Then we had an intense drought. So you move from having lots of rain to drought. And then comes Hurricane Melissa. And by the way, after Hurricane Melissa, we also had a week of rain. So this is quite unusual. But we expect that we will be having these weather events more and more. So we have to now be prepared for it. I will address that a little later, but I want to come back to the relief effort. So you would have heard some complaints about persons not getting relief efforts, they're not getting the packages, and all kinds of things you may have heard or seen. Absolutely nothing like that. There were instances of communities that we could not reach. And the reason for that is that we simply just didn't know of these communities. That might shock you. But it is true, because there are many communities that have sprung up informally. So it's one thing. So we know the communities. People know, the councillor would know, people, so everybody would know that community, but it's not on a map. So think about this. You're sending out helicopter pilots to go and find somewhere. It's not on the map. How are they going to find it? So it took some time for us to actually be able to map all the communities, find out where they are, give instructions as to where they could go. And that is an area that we need to strengthen in terms of the orderly mapping of Jamaica. So we know every community, even communities that don't want to be known. And there are communities like that because they are not regularly settled. There are persons living on lands for which they have no title or no rights to, and they feel that they should live in fear. But informality weakens our disaster response. And as a society, we have to take a very comprehensive approach to how we're going to ensure that in the event of a disaster, we are able to reach you. Whether where you live, you have title for it, or you live on Gully Bank, or you don't live nowhere, or you live somewhere. We need to be able to find you and provide the help to you. So we have made some changes within the government to improve ODPEM, that is the Office of Disaster and Emergency Preparedness Management. We are restructuring the JDF to be able to focus more on assisting in the immediate aftermath of the disaster. We're going to strengthen the local authorities so that they're in a better position to be the first responders in the event of disaster. So there are some lessons that we have learned, some things that we have done, that in the event of the next disaster, we are able to respond and respond even better than we were able to do in Melissa. You notice that after 2 weeks, you don't hear nothing more about the relief effort, because we were able to put in place a really robust logistics operation that delivered, I don't remember the figures, but it's hundreds of thousands of packages to households that were impacted. And it has gone fairly well. I must at this point commend the efforts of the average Jamaicans, who themselves made it a point of duty. It almost became fashionable for every Jamaican to be packing up their bags and of care packages and putting it in the back of the car and heading out to Westmoreland or Black River or some other community in the affected area. And some of you would have sent back things to Jamaica, utilizing the waivers that we put in place to assist with the shipping of stuff to Jamaica for the relief effort. Now, just a quick word on that. We're grateful as a country, and it shows the solidarity of the diaspora and those Jamaicans who are living abroad, and the care you have, the connection you have to your family. And it has worked so well that there is a massive pileup now at the wharf of barrels and pallets and all kinds of packages that have been sent, which have not yet been cleared. And so it's creating a little challenge there because it is causing some congestion on the wharf. But I want to say thank you to all of our Jamaicans overseas, the Jamaican diaspora, for all the contributions you have made, either directly or through the national accounts. We are very much appreciative of it. So we recently announced the end of the relief period. That came to an end in January, the end of January. So the government is not focused on relief. And I think at this point, we should also say thanks to the international community who came to support, whether it was the Red Cross, PAHO, the UN entities that came to support us. And one that I found great favor with was the World Central Kitchen. Oh God, they did such an amazing job. They provided, I believe, close to 1 million meals to dislocated Jamaicans. And you know what I was proud of? We had about one or two cases of persons trying to rob individuals carrying out relief efforts. But by and large, we behave ourselves. By and large. Which tells me that we can't do it. We can't do it. It's just a few bad eggs we have. But by and large, there was no, with a disaster like that, with the crime problems that we had, there was no break in our national security. There was never a time when we had to declare a state of public emergency. And that meant the security forces could focus on where the effort was really needed, which is on the relief and the recovery. So the relief went fairly well. And we ended that phase at the end of January. And we're going to officially end the recovery phase. Now, what is the recovery phase? So recovery is when you're able to return electricity, water, telecommunications, hospitals, schools, open up back the roads, open up back the shops and stores. In other words, to return normalcy to people's lives. And a part of the recovery effort is to get the roofs rebuilt. So the roofs program spanned both recovery and the other part of the effort, which is called reconstruction. So we have started the recovery of roofs with a program that we actually call roofs. And that is the restoration of owner-occupant family shelters. And we are giving grants to persons who have been severely damaged, or total damage or severely damaged, of 500,000 Jamaican dollars. And that is significant. That will help you to restore two rooms on your house. For people with moderate damage, remind the minister what they get. They get, I think it's 200,000. And for people who get minor damage, 2 or 3 sheets of zinc off their house, they get $75,000. So we have started that, and we have allocated in the budget 10 billion Jamaican dollars. And that will help about 50,000 Jamaicans to recover. So you would see in the media where the process has started, people are getting their checks, people are able to go to the hardware and start to reconstruct, rebuild, restore, repair their roofs. Already we are about 97% recovered, if not more than that by now, in electricity. We're 97% recovered in water. Schools are back. All schools that can reopen are reopened. We have different modalities. Some schools are reopened, but they don't have regular classes. Some schools are reopened, but they are online. I think the biggest fallout, which is of concern to me, is that the Ministry of Education has reported that there are about 1,000 kids that they have not been able to track and get them to come back to school. But the good news is that the ministry is actively trying to find them, to get them back into school. Because I always believe, in the worst of situation, it is better for you to be in school than not. So we're going to find them and bring them back to school. And the other good news is that we have approved, well, almost $5 billion for the Ministry of Education to do the restoration and rebuilding of schools, and that is going on right across Jamaica now. So yes, for the next month or so, there will be a little bit of dislocation, but as soon as those schools are restored, kids will be going back to their normal school schedule. So the recovery is going fairly well. Now for the big thing, the reconstruction. The reconstruction has to take place on 2 levels. The first level is that we have to look at what was destroyed, and we have to figure out, should we build this back? And I want you to just stop for a moment and think about it. It doesn't make sense to build back things which shouldn't have been there in the first place. Let me give you an example. If we were building a hospital today, we would not build it in a low-lying area close to the sea. Why we would do that? Hurricane going to come, high tide, flood, all kind of things. So we'd find a better place to put it. But we have hospitals that we have, inherited from colonial times. For example, the Black River Hospital. And you know where that is, right on the shore. So you really wouldn't want your hospital to be in a place where it is going to be so exposed. That will break your ability to continue to give service to people, right? So if we were building the hospital now, we would build it in a more secure location. So if the hospital is destroyed, why go back and build the hospital there? No, we have to be smart. We put it somewhere else. And there are a few hospitals like that. One of them, as I mentioned, Black River, Noel Homes, and the Falmouth Hospital. Again, very close to the sea, near the shore, and in a low-lying area. So we have to figure out where we're going to move these hospitals and put them. Then, I want you to think about some of our roads. You ever wonder why we build the roads on the coast? Why we run the road beside the river? Why we put the road on the steep hillside? Why we cut the road on land that you know is going to slip? Think about it. Many of these decisions were not made by us, right? Some of them are legacy from colonial periods, when the route to market from the farm traveled along a river to carry into town. The route to the port to get the banana or the sugar, you travel along the shore to the port. And that is how most of our roads, which started from donkey track, and then it became the normal route, and then we just decided to pave it because that is the route. But if we were doing it today, would we do it like that? No. So we have to go start to think, no, we need a new highway, because I don't know how many of you knew this, but to get into St. Elizabeth by road was a problem. The road couldn't carry the traffic. And when everybody's going down there, it just was a knot. It just wouldn't work. But that also shows you that you need a better road network to be able to be responsive in an effective way to a disaster. So we have to build some new roads, but we can't build them in the same place and in the same way. So in the reconstruction phase, we're going to look at what is there, and we're going to say, what can we build differently? So we're going to build either in more secure and defensible locations, but we're also going to build to different standards. We're going to build it such that if there is another super phenomenal event, another extreme event, like Hurricane Melissa, the facility will not be damaged, and the facility will be able to continue service. I want to spend a little time on this issue of the continuation of service. As I was flying all over Jamaica in the impacted areas, there were times when we stopped at hospitals, and the chief medical person there would come up to us and say, we have a mother who is about to deliver. We have no electricity, no water. We have patients that we have nowhere to put them. The hospitals did an amazing job. The doctors and nurses, I have to give them commendations. They did not abandon their post. Many of their homes were destroyed, and they stayed there under far less than ideal conditions. The people who are critical of our response don't see these things. They don't see the JDF flying several missions, carrying people with broken leg, carrying pregnant mothers, carrying people who didn't have their diabetic drugs to get them to places where they can be treated. But that could have been lessened if the hospitals were built to a particular standard where they could withstand the hurricane and continue to serve even the disaster. So what the disaster did, though it did not stop the continuity of government was able to respond quickly. In some areas, there was a break in continuity. The police station was totally destroyed in Black River, but the policemen were there. The hospital totally gone, but the nurses and doctors were there. They were able to give some service, but not to the level of service that you would require for a disaster. And so when we build again in the reconstruction phase, we're going to make sure that if we have another disaster, those critical services, your health care, security, your fire, your local government, those critical buildings will be maintained so that you will have continuity of service and continuity of government if there is any failure. Something that is seared in my mind from watching the international coverage of the hurricane, which I'm sure many of you were watching the international coverage. So there's a reporter from I believe it's a British station, and he was interviewing a man, and the man was saying, boy, I don't see nobody from the government, nobody not come. I don't know how many of you saw that. The only people we see are the Lakovia police. But what it did for me was to show, to be, you know, it really gave an insight into how Jamaicans see their government. Right? If I don't come, the government don't go. If I am not there on the spot handing out the package, the government didn't do anything. The government isn't there. That's quite understandable, right? I mean, people want to see the persons they elected, the person who they vote for, the person who they call their leader. They want to see them there. But that can't be the case in these kinds of disasters. I can go for sure. I could go and hand out one package. But when you have 100 and 1,000 persons affected, what's one package? My job was to make sure that the systems work. Now, we need to bridge that understanding in our people. You need to be holding government to account for making sure that systems work. Not for them to be coming and handing out anything to you. Because just from a physical, practical point of view, we can't hand out to everybody who needs it. We need to put systems in place to reach everybody who needs it. And that's what I focus my time and effort on, to put the systems in place, make sure they work, and make sure there's no repeat of any systems failure that may have occurred. So I give you that as an assurance that every day I am at my desk trying to ensure that the systems work in your favor, that you are protected. If there is a shock, we can respond, stand up quickly, and recover and grow even better than before the shock. And that's what my efforts have been. And I believe they have been fairly successful. So systems are working. Now, let's be clear. Some of your families, they have not yet been able to put on their roofs. They still have tarps on their roofs. When it rains, it's Melissa all over again. But it is not hopeless. So there are people still suffering, but it is not hopeless. I do tour every now and again, and I see that the recovery is taking place. Those who can, they're putting up back their sheets of zinc and doing what they can. And as the grants go out, you're going to see those roofs coming back on. We have had to insist that the grant money be used for the roof. We know you have more needs than the roof. So what we have said is, of any grant that we give you, you can use $75,000 to do anything else you want. You may need a bed. Some people might need to get back school uniform for their kids or books or something. So you use $75,000 out of that, but the rest of it must go towards the material. And we've put in place a system where when you go to use the money, we know what you use it on. So, because it's all digital, it's all digital. So we know that, but anyway, you couldn't use it for anything other than, because you can only negotiate the resources at places that are certified for that. So it's hardware stuff you're going to get to repair your roof. And I think that is only fair, because if you never need it, give it to somebody else now. And not to mention that the NHT is out there as well. They have given out over 5,000 grants in total so far. So there are a lot of funds going out, but you know what? Everybody keep it secret. Nobody tell anybody that they get. So I give you a joke. We give out multiple grants. So we give out building grants for the roofs program for building, and we gave out some relief support grants that households that we have assessed, they would have gotten some cash grants that they could use to buy food supplies and to restart their lives. And so people were getting the grants. So it's like $30,000 to $40,000 a fortnight or something like that. So when I announced the roofs program, there were some people grumbling, but didn't want to say anything, because they said, this is all we're getting? That can't repair a roof. But you see, They didn't want to come up and ask any questions, lest they were not supposed to get that grant. So we had to reassure them, no, look, yes, we assessed you. You gave us your details and we sent the funds to you. Yes, you're supposed to get the grant. That is not the housing grant. That is to help you in the relief effort with a little food and so forth. But that is the challenge, right? People are going to be very cautious with saying, I got. But the target is that so far over 50,000 people, based upon the funds that we have projected, will get grants to assist with the recovery. So I'm saying all of this to you, and I'm certain we'll get back home, that we have to be careful when we craft notions that nothing is happening and nobody's getting assistance. That's patently untrue. And it creates a kind of dampened attitude of positive recovery. And if we need anything now, is a positive attitude for recovery. So I just want to put that on the record and to inform you as members of the diaspora. Now, we are going to be establishing an entity called NARA, the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority. So yes, we're going to reconstruct the stuff that was destroyed, but we also have to look at things that were not destroyed. But if it were destroyed, we would be in problems. So like KPH. So we have to look at how we can rebuild, improve KPH, so that if, God forbid, anything were to happen in that region, KPH would continue to deliver critical services. So that will be a project under the NARA. That's not a reconstruction project, that's a resilience project. Right? The Sandy Gully. I toured the Sandy Gully just before. You know, the Sandy Gully was built more than 60 years ago, almost 70 years ago. And that was designed to take the water from the hills of St. Andrew to the sea through the low-lying areas of St. Andrew and close to Kingston. That gully is in need of serious repairs. If there was ever a heavy flow, it would compromise all the houses on the gully bank and would flood the plains of St. Andrew. So we are going to have to fix that. That's not a reconstruction of a damaged infrastructure in the area of impact, but if we don't do it, we won't have resilience. So the reconstruction is going to be in two phases. As I said, one is the reconstruction of what was destroyed and the strengthening of what exists. But we need to do it in order for us to have resilience. And we're going to officially open, even though it's going on, but we're going to officially open the reconstruction phase the end of this month, when we will name the board of NARA, appoint an executive director, and start. One last thing, you can't reconstruct without money. You can't do the reconstruction without money. And we don't have the money. Let me put some things into context for you. I want you to just bear with me for 2 minutes with this. The World Bank estimated that the damage was somewhere in the region of about $8.6 billion, my vague recollection of it. We just finalized that figure through the PIOJ, and it is closer to $10 billion of damage. US are talking, when they're talking US. Anybody knows what is Jamaica's GDP? Jamaica's GDP is about $21 billion. You get the magnitude of the disaster? So almost half of our GDP. All right. So we wouldn't be able to find that to recover. Now, granted, not everything that was destroyed is public. Hotels, private businesses, private residents, but it's still destroyed. And the government don't own all of the GDP either. The GDP is where you produce as well. So the impact on the society is great. Now, Minister Johnson Smith and myself, we went to something called the G20, which is the group of 20 leading economies in the world. And we spent the time there in dialogue with the international financial institutions, and they were very sympathetic to Jamaica. Now, when you go across the world, Jamaica is the most known island. Brand Jamaica big. And you have made it so. Your brothers and your sisters, your family would have gone abroad, established communities, integrated into other societies. They would have carried with them the fundamental values of what has made us Jamaicans. And they would have added to other societies, maintained their links to Jamaica, to the point where Jamaica became an umbrella country, where other countries identified as Jamaicans. But we have also contributed significantly to the world. We have our artists and our musicians, not to mention our athletes, our scientists and teachers and nurses, not to mention our revolutionaries. Yes, so everybody knows about Jamaica. But what they don't know Jamaica for is a country that is growing. We are not known as a country that is economically flourishing. We are not known for our good fiscal and economic management. That's not what we are known for, except in the last decade, when we have started to create that as a part of our brand. Because the people who study how countries are developing, how they are, I use the word maturity, how they're becoming mature in the management of their affairs, they will tell you that Jamaica has moved from being the basket case to being the case study. Yes. Now, that is an idea up here. For most people, that don't really translate to anything. When you walk into a store in New York, into the sports store, and the person come over and say, what are you looking for? And you say, I'm looking for sneakers. I say, you want a Usain Bolt track shoes? Which has happened to me. They're not going to ask you about your finance minister and how you managed to reduce your debt. They don't ask you that. Or they might ask you about Buju Banton or one of our singers or so, or Bob Marley or so. But they're not going to ask you about your prime minister and how he's developing your country. But in certain sectors, it matters that Jamaica has started to take the management of its economy into hand and has had very good returns for doing that. Jamaica is now about 2 steps away from what is described as investment grade, where you can put your money in the country and feel safe. Remember, our debt was as high as 140% of GDP. Were it not for Melissa, this year we would have reached 60%. debt to GDP. We were able to go 10 years without any new taxes. We are the first government ever to be able to execute a tax refund. People who live in the United States know what tax refund is. When you submit your tax returns, you meet certain criteria, government actually give you back money. For the first time ever under our administration, Jamaicans got what we call a reverse tax credit. Yes. We have consistently increased the income tax threshold, and we have consistently increased the minimum wage. In fact, we have more than doubled the minimum wage since we have been the government, and we'll continue to increase the minimum wage. We have increased the general wage levels in the country. There are a lot of talk about wages, but when we talk about it, we must talk about it in factual terms. Right? The increases that have been given have never been given in the history of Jamaica. Significant increases. We have improved the management of our economy such that we are now able to increase our budget on national security. I want you to bear this in mind, that there were years before when there was no capital budget for the Ministry of National Security, meaning that the government couldn't buy a police car. Today, every Jamaican benefits from a murder rate that is below 1,000 murders the first time in 30 years. And I'm certain that our police is motivated, the policy is right, that we will get to below 500 this year. We are working towards that. We are setting ourselves, and we will have that. In other words, homicide, the killing of a person, is the ultimate expression of violence. And unfortunately, in the last 50 years, violence has become associated with the Jamaican character. I say it very cautiously as the Prime Minister of the country. But I have to be frank with you, my people, that we have allowed violence to creep into our daily interactions. And the result of that is that we are using violence as a means of resolving conflicts. We're going to put it in some nice terms. They say intimate partner violence, but you say man and woman business. There was a time when we even accepted that, I'm not even going to say it. But there are some people who believe in violence in intimate partner relationship. And if you're not showing violence, then you don't really love. But that has also crept into, if you're not beating your picnic, you don't really love them because you're going to make them go on bad. And what has happened is that there is no limit as to how you discipline your child. So you have violence in how you discipline children. And when I tell you this, the only thing that a child learns from violent discipline is that the only way to correct something that is wrong is through violence. So you have inoculated that child with violence. You have infected them with violence, and that is how they're going to largely go unless there is some intervention. In domestic issues, we have seen situations in Jamaica. The neighbor's garbage bin turned over in front of somebody's yard. They have an argument. And before you know it, knife draw, neighbor dead. Just think about it. I mean, you know the experiences. You go to other countries and you don't see that. We as a people have to stand up and say, we're going to change this. This is not Jamaican. It is un-Jamaican. It has destroyed our good brand. And we have to address it. So we're on our way to do that by reducing murders. We are reducing the ultimate expression of violence. And we're going to get there. We're going to become a peaceful country again. How many of you remember this? Jamaica, no problem, man. Jamaica, Irie. Yeah, that was what, that is what built our brand. Yeah. But we are allowing a certain kind of behavior to destroy who we are as a people. So this decade, we have largely dealt with the fiscal management of our economy, and that will last us, that will put us on good stead. This decade, we're going to deal with the issue of violence in our country, and that will put us in good standing. But we're going to also use Hurricane Melissa to rebuild our infrastructure. So when we went to the G20 and we met with the international institutions, they say, yes, Jamaica, we like Usain Bolt and all of that. But you know what we really like? You know what we're really proud of? That as a small country, you have run your affairs responsibly. You don't spend more than you earn and then expect the rest of the world to lend you money sympathetically. You don't run your affairs poorly and then blame the rest of the world for conditions that everybody else faces. You have started to stand up like mature individuals and realize that there is nobody coming to save you. You have to save yourself. You're always talking about your independence. Well, the only way you can be truly independent, is when you're economically independent. That means you don't owe nobody, nothing, and if you owe them, you know you can pay them back. That is the position that we are in today. And so the international community had no difficulty in immediately saying, you have done well. We will set aside $6.7 billion to help you with the reconstruction of your country. We have never been in that position before. Just think about it. We'll be waiting on people to come with aid or somebody to come and do something for us. No, we are truly now exercising what we call our agency, which is the real essence of being an independent nation. So we're going to use that money to make an impact on our infrastructure. That's what we're going to do with it. And hopefully, it will add to our growth. Because we're not just going to build infrastructure, we're going to try and build a new economy. In other words, we're going to carefully select the projects that we are building such that people can earn a living or find it easier to earn a living from those projects. Finally, because I know you might want to ask a few questions, and I've been going a little while, but you all seem to be entertained. So, but I know you have to get back, some of you, to Nevis. Finally, one of the things that I'm proud of under this administration is that we have managed to bring unemployment down to 3.4%, I believe it was, the last figures. No doubt there will be a little uptick in unemployment because of Melissa. Many hotels are closed, many businesses are closed, and so there will be an uptick. But the 3.4% or 3.5% unemployment technically means that Jamaica is at full employment. Now, when I say that, there are some people might say, is that really true? Well, we've been using this method of calculating employment for decades. So we haven't changed the measure. Now, is everyone who is employed in a high-paying job? No. Is everyone who is employed in a job that is fully utilizing their skills? Maybe not. So there is room to improve unemployment, right? There's room to improve the job situation. But we have solved the first problem. We are getting more Jamaicans into work than any time in our history. And that's the start of development. Once you are in a job and you're earning income, that's the beginning of your independence. You might not be able to buy the car you want or the house you want, but you'll be able to send your children to school. So that might be your first investment. Now, the task for us is how do we improve the quality of work that you have? Big challenge. Because we don't have all the industries that pay well. And so while we are bringing more people into the labor force, we are still losing a lot of people going overseas. People are saying, boy, yeah, I see the job here, but I don't want this job. I'm going to go overseas to try and get a better job. Hence, I'm here talking to a lovely audience of Jamaicans. Now, Jamaicans have been doing this for over 200 years. We have a Jamaican diaspora in Honduras. We have a Jamaican diaspora in Costa Rica. We have a Jamaican diaspora in Colombia. Yes, in Panama. In Belize, there's a Jamaican diaspora. We have a small Jamaican diaspora in Guatemala. We have a Jamaican diaspora in almost every Caribbean country. Yeah. So that is not going to change overnight. But what will change in the next 10 years? You're not going to be leaving because you couldn't find a job. And you're not going to be leaving because you couldn't find a good paying job. We're going to change that. That if you leave, it's because you meet somebody and you're married off and you have to go with them. Or you leave because you want to go on a vacation. Yeah, Jamaicans can go on vacation too. Of course. Yeah, in other words, if you're migrating, it's not because of economic issues. And that's one of our objectives, right? Because ultimately, if we're going to build a country, we need talent. We need people. And what has happened to us for 200 years is that we have been sending away our most talented people. Jamaica has been a net exporter of talent to the world. That's the reality. Now, if that talent is building somewhere else, boy, can you imagine if we had that talent building in Jamaica? So we have to create the conditions for our talent to remain in Jamaica. And that is what I'm dedicating myself to do. To make Jamaica the place where you choose to live, work, do business, raise your family, and retire. Yes, Jamaica, the place of your choice. And there are many strategies we have in place, and we're getting there. It's incremental. It's almost sometimes indiscernible. But after 10 years, Jamaica is a different place. So 10 years ago, debt was high, crime was high, inflation was high, wages were low, all kinds of challenges. We weren't able to withstand disasters. Today, all of that is fundamentally different. Now, what are some of the things that we need to change quickly so that you can say, yes, Jamaica has changed? I think the first thing you want to see, apart from reducing the crime, is to make Jamaica clean. Public sanitation and public order. As you experience the countries that you live in, and you compare and say, why Jamaica can't look like that sometimes? So we have a plan which we're going to be unfolding to deal with the cleanliness, public sanitation, and public order. Right? Then there is the healthcare. So that is a big concern for a lot of people. And we are making the investments in increasing healthcare capacity. But there is the care in healthcare which is posing a challenge. There are a lot of Jamaicans who feel that they are not being cared for in healthcare, meaning they're receiving the treatments and the drugs and so forth, but they feel that the care, the heart, sometimes the compassion isn't there. And, I have to also be very considerate of the pressures that the nurses and doctors are on. I mean, I've been into some of those waiting areas. It's not the most ideal. And sometimes they have to be very efficient and very assertive in what they're doing. And sometimes that may not come across in a compassionate way when persons are suffering under illness. So yes, these are all things that we have to deal with. Minister Tufton has started to address that in a practical way in trying to manage waiting times, because that is one of the key variables in how people feel about the care in healthcare, how long they have to wait. So we're putting things in place to manage that. I'm not telling you that we're going to have a first world health system in 10 years, but we're going to work to getting very close towards that. Then the education system. Jamaica was largely reputed as having one of the best education systems. But then we didn't have access. So we had high quality, but low access. So it meant that a certain strata of the society would get access to the best quality education. We kind of reformed that. So now we have almost universal access. But that has come at the expense of quality. And I'm using the term quality advisedly. I don't want anybody to, as these things have social connotations usually, to misinterpret what I'm saying. I mean, there is a standard functionality that we expect the average citizen to receive from the education system. The ability to articulate in the language, the official language of the country. And though many persons are able to write, they're not able to articulate in the language of the country. That can pose issues, especially when it comes to employment, and our economy is built on service, and to deliver service, you usually have to be able to articulate in formal language. And that is a weakness in our education system that we must address. In today's world, you must be computational. You must have mathematical functionality. You don't have to be a math professor or a math genius, but you must be able to compute. And again, numeracy is an issue. We see it in our scores when we compare ourselves to others, and this is something that we must address. Unfortunately, as a cultural matter, we grow up, say, boy, I never like mathematics, or boy, I can't do maths. And what that has done is to seep into the minds of our children that mathematics is not important. And that in today's world, I would advise all parents to ensure that their children pay attention and focus on mathematics. Absolutely important. Absolutely important. We have to become technologically aware, because technology is being integrated into almost every aspect of life. Now, we see ourselves as consumers of technology. So we buy the phone and we download the apps and we consider technology almost like an appliance. That's good. But we now need to start to consider technology more as like a tool. So we're not using technology to satisfy our consumption. We're using technology to create value. And that is going to be the distinguishing feature of countries that grow and sell products and countries that don't grow but buy products. So we have to spend some time on our education system to create the generation of Jamaicans who are going to be able to use technology as a tool. All right? So I think I've gone into quite a bit. I hope my presentation has kind of enlightened you as to what we're doing in Jamaica, what the future of Jamaica looks like, and how we are progressing as a country. But more importantly, how we are progressing as a people. We are a great people. We have overcome great challenges. We have accomplished much, but we could and will accomplish much more. God bless you and thank you.
Prime Minister once again. And I'm just going to ask for the two chairs to come and ask the Minister and the Prime Minister to join me back up here, because where Jamaicans are gathered, we have to take a few questions. So Minister Johnson Smith and Prime Minister Hilness. And there's a mic to the right, to my left, your right. If you have a question for the Prime Minister or for the Minister, I'm going to ask you to just go right there. Or if you just have a comment, I see that gentleman ready. Couldn't wait. And I'm hoping, please bring them so that they're comfortable. And you have to let us know who you are and guess what parish you come from.
That's a very interesting question you asked me to answer.
Okay, so your question is for the Prime Minister?
Yes.
Okay.
I am the older Andrew Hilness.
I know him very well.
It is nice to see you, Prime Minister.
How are you, Doc?
I am good. It's been a while since the last time you were here.
Yes.
Thanks for your presentation. Thanks for your presence. And I have a question. Is it in your thoughts how us Jamaicans who live in St. Kitts can contribute to the electoral process? I would like to vote.
Come on.
I mean, not because you're my family. I would have voted for you. But I'm sure it concerns us all. It happens in other countries that we get an idea, we get the opportunity to cast our vote remotely or something like that.
All right, so let me answer quickly and directly. Remote voting is not an impossibility. And in today's world, technology enables it. But even without digital technology, there is a concept of a mailing ballot. Our constitution, however, does not recognize that, and our electoral law does not recognize that. As we mature in our democracy, it may very well become possible. Future parliaments may say we need to bring the diaspora in and do it. Right now, it is not a consideration of the current parliament. We have had the debates, we have had the discussions, but it is not something that is the forefront of the mind right now as we look at reforming our electoral laws. But just to say this, any member of the diaspora who wants to vote, who is a Jamaican or is a member of the Commonwealth, once you are resident in Jamaica and you can prove your address in Jamaica over a certain period of time, and you have a certain minimum level of identification, whether it is birth certificate or some other identification, form of identification, to establish your age, that you're over 18, because you have to be over 18 to register to vote, and your identification is established, that is your name and address, then you can come to Jamaica when the election is announced. But you have to be on that voters list. So to get on the voters list, you have to come and register. And you can vote. Nobody stops you. In fact, I must say, Minister, when I'm on the election trail, I meet a lot of Jamaicans who say, I come from England, I come from New York, I fly in, I come to vote. And I'm certain that there are Jamaicans here in St. Kitts and Nevis who returned to vote. Yes. So for now, my answer to you, Andrew, is for now, that is how we would have to do it until we change our electoral laws to be able to facilitate diaspora voting.
Thank you so much. I noticed that the line has 5 men. No women have any questions? But anyway, please go ahead and just remember to tell us your name and the parish you're from. And we'll just close off this number of persons so that the PM and the minister and indicate who it is that you would like to answer your question.
Absolutely. Good night. I want to say good night to Minister Johnson and Prime Minister. I'm Paul Lee from the great parish of St. Mary, in particular Western St. Mary. My question is in regards to Cuba. And I must first commend the statement from Prime Minister and Minister Johnson today. Now, I believe Jamaica has to play a critical role in what is happening in Cuba. I have visited Cuba many a times. I'm wearing my red tie in support of Cuba. And I believe we cannot allow Cuba to suffer, because if Cuba suffers and that humanitarian crisis is created, the first place they're going to come to is Jamaica. And so I want to commend you, Prime Minister, for your presentation at the CARICOM Heads of Summit. And I want to say to you that we stand with you. And we hear we hear persons up north making statements, but we understand that there are other persons who have agenda and are funded by other sources. But we say Cuba will always be our friend, and they have always been a friend to Jamaica. And I want to tell you, continue to fight on behalf of the people of Jamaica and our relationship with Cuba.
I think, thank you for that question. Just very, very quickly, you might be happy to know that one of the outcomes of the meeting here in St. Kitts is that the heads of government have agreed to establish support for Cuba in terms of humanitarian support. So in the coming days, you will be hearing more about how we intend to not just talk about support, but to give support in a humanitarian way to Cuba. There are a lot of things happening. I think thoughtful and careful pronouncements are best at this time, because there are a lot of things going on, and we don't want any errant statements to have any impact on speedy resolution, which is what we are hoping for.
Thank you, Prime Minister. And the next question, remember to tell us the parish you're from as well as your name.
Let me say good night to everyone. I'm Brian Simmet from the cool parish of Manchester. I'm Brian Simmet. I'm from the cool parish of Manchester. I must commend the Prime Minister and Minister Simmet. I guess we might relate it somehow. And the Prime Minister, you're doing a great job in Jamaica. You are doing a great job. I have watched the news, I have listened, I've been in Jamaica, and I've seen the great job that you're doing. My question to you is that, what's the plan you have for small business in Jamaica? What do you have in place for small business? Because I believe maybe some of us might get jealous and might want to return. So we want to know what is your plan and what you have in place.
Well, just a couple of things very quickly. We will be giving grants to support businesses that have been impacted by the hurricane. So that process will accelerate very shortly. We are creating new services and new products to support small businesses through the Development Bank of Jamaica. That's in fact the focus. The support may not always be financial. Indeed, it is not going to be mostly financial. The support is going to be in technical areas and in services that small businesses need for them to become robust and sustainable. So things like them being able to access technology, access markets, being able to do their compliance for taxes and reporting, and to train them in management. So we're going to give more support for businesses in that. But I think the biggest thing that the government can do to support businesses in general, is to reduce the cost of doing business. That is a huge turnoff and burden on small businesses. The compliance that they have to go through, the various fees that they have to pay to get access to various services, and the bureaucracy, that is really a weight on small business. And that is something that the government, and you would have heard me speak on this, that we are actively now developing a plan. We have the plan, but we're now bringing it to public understanding, why it is that we need to deal with the public bureaucracy that is literally stifling innovation and business in Jamaica.
Thank you, PM. And I just want to highlight that the gentleman in the white shirt will be the last person with a question, because I want you to be able to go and enjoy some food over there provided by the shops before we leave. And we must also remember that we have the contest, the 3 prizes that I'll invite Mrs. Sharp to give out. So please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Good night, all. First, let me adopt the protocol that has already been established. My name is Samuel Rowe. I'm from Southfield in St. Elizabeth. Thank you. I've had the pleasure of sitting in some lectures that was shared by the Prime Minister there, Mr. Trevor Monroe, Mr. Robertom. He knows those persons. And being from St. Elizabeth, I heard through the grapevine that there is a planned development for Black River. That is just minutes from me. I walked the Black River from home, 20 miles away, but I was fit then. And I'm wondering, the wife and I have some property in St. Elizabeth. Don't laugh, don't laugh. So we want to know if we should sell now or wait until the development. Why are you laughing at me?
All right, because look, I'm not here to give you financial advice, and I can't, and I won't. But look, quickly to say, I mean, we've been focusing on saying we're going to redevelop Black River. We're going to redevelop the entire parish. All the parishes that have been impacted will have some form of development there. We intend to be transparent about the development. I didn't want to announce this yet. Well, let me put it in another way that doesn't compromise the planned announcement. But we will be totally transparent in sharing the development plan with the public. So everybody will be able to see what the government plans to do. And from that, you can then make your development decisions, right? That's how I would do it. So my friend, you sound like you're at university with me. Yes. So look out for that when we make the announcement. We have a short list of projects that we're going to do right across Jamaica, and in particular, the areas impacted. And all of those projects will be announced. So you will be able to say, I have property close to this. I wonder if I should do this, if I should sell it or I should do my own development. There might be persons who had plans for development for a very long time, but said, you know what, I don't want to be the only one spending in the area. But now you see what is going to happen. You could mobilize and do the investment. So we're going to be totally transparent. There will be no secret about what is going to happen, and you have to know somebody to get information. No, we will publish it. Everybody will be able to see it, and then you can make your decisions.
Thank you so much, PM. Yes.
Thank you. A pleasant good night to everyone. Protocol established, protocol adopted. Honorable Prime Minister, not quite sure whether or not the questions will be.
They want your name and where you're from in Jamaica.
Winston Morrison, born Portlander, reared and bred in the cool hills of Manchester, my patriarchal home.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And also the Vice President of Jamaica here in Nevis, responsible for the Nevis chapter. I have two questions, Mr. Prime Minister, but I must first commend you and the work that you're doing. Certainly, I believe in you when you have started to be the first post-independent Prime Minister. And that tells me that there is something in you that is, with all the work that has been done from those prior, but there is something about you that is different because you come after independent. So you are somewhat not tainted with colloquialism in that context that I'm looking at. Yes, we come through that, but your focus is an after independent and development of Jamaica, going from independence. And we have seen that. However, there's a template. Maybe you are going along that, but probably I wanted to enunciate it more clearly. The Asian tiger, Singapore, has looked at a Jamaican template, has taken it and become one of the most powerful Asian economies. Is Jamaica looking at that template to become the envy of the Caribbean?
So let me put it to you in this way. Yes, Jamaica looks at all successful countries, Singapore included. I'll give you another country. Jamaica and Singapore started out with approximately the same level of GDP per capita in 1962. In fact, we were slightly ahead of them. But Korea, South Korea, was poorer than Jamaica in the 1960s. Today, Singapore's GDP per capita is about $60,000 per capita, per person. And South Korea is maybe around that or a little bit more. Singapore's economy is $500 billion. They are they're about $550 billion US. Jamaica's economy is how much? $21 billion. Wow. We have lost a lot of time. We have been diverted into all kinds of ideological pathways which have not served us as a people. When you travel and you see what other countries are accomplishing and what they're achieving, you come back and you say, not now go on to Jamaica, and you get frustrated. I'm saying to you that I am committed not to make those mistakes again. That we're going to try and catch up back now. Yes, sir, we should have been the $500 billion economy. Lee Kuan Yew came to Jamaica and he saw what we were doing. He took the Jamaica Business Development Corporation form and our systems and he took them back to Singapore. The story is told by one of Jamaica's premier businessman. He told me personally that when he went to Singapore to do business, the officer from their business development, the equivalent of JAMPRO today, gave him a form. And when he read the form, it was the exact same form that he had to fill out in Jamaica. Look at Singapore today and look at us now. So I am not going to be wasting time. I am going to be pushing hard to develop Jamaica. We can be the Singapore of the Caribbean.
Final question, Mr. PM, and that has to do with some independent. One question.
We're just going to allow him this once, but next,
Yes.
everybody else has to understand it's one question.
Thank you very much.
But please make it quick.
It is pensional. No, just think about a person who in the diaspora have worked